Play this piano, and I'll marry you. The voice of Claire Harrison, the only daughter of a billionaire, cut through the golden air of the ballroom like a whip. Every head turned, every laugh grew sharper, as the wealthy guests looked toward the man she mocked. Their eyes, filled with arrogance and superiority, landed on Daniel, the janitor. He wasn't dressed in designer suits or polished shoes. His uniform carried the faint smell of cleaning supplies, his calloused hands rough from years of hard work. He had been sweeping a corner quietly, invisible to everyone, until Claire's cruel words dragged him into the center of attention. For her, this was a joke, a game meant to entertain the spoiled elite who thrived on belittling those beneath them. At the heart of the ballroom, beneath the glittering chandelier, stood the piano, a magnificent Italian grand, polished until it gleamed like a crown jewel. To Claire and her circle, it wasn't just an instrument, it was a symbol of wealth and culture, proof of their refinement. Never in her wildest imagination did she believe that someone like Daniel could even touch it, let alone play it. "Go on, janitor," she sneered, her diamond necklace glinting in the light, her smirk wide and merciless. "Impress us. If you can play this piano like a true artist, I'll marry you right here in front of everyone." The guests roared with laughter, clinking their champagne glasses. Men in tuxedos exchanged smug glances, women in sparkling gowns whispered into each other's ears, all eager to watch Daniel crumble under the weight of humiliation. To them, he was nothing more than a prop in their evening's entertainment, but Daniel did not flinch. He didn't drop his broom and run. He didn't protest or beg to be excused. Instead, with a quiet dignity that startled the crowd, he leaned the broom gently against the wall and began walking toward the piano. His steps echoed against the marble floor, slow and steady, each one silencing another laugh, another whisper. There was something in the way he carried himself, a stillness, a confidence that unsettled even Claire. For the first time that evening, her smirk faltered. Daniel sat before the piano, his rough fingers hovering above the ivory keys. They trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of memories pressing against him. Then, he pressed down. And the ballroom was never the same again. Music erupted, not just sound but a flood of emotion that swept across the room. It wasn't the hesitant fumbling of an amateur. It wasn't the mechanical reproduction of a student. It was alive. Each note carried fire, sorrow, and triumph. The melodies rose like a storm, fierce and untamed, then fell into delicate whispers that seemed to speak directly to the soul. The chandeliers seemed to sway in response, the golden walls trembling under the force of his genius. Conversations died. Glasses hung in midair. No one dared to move. The same guests who had mocked him seconds before now stared in disbelief, their faces drained of color. Some swore they heard the spirit of Beethoven roaring through the hall, others whispered Chopin's brilliance reborn before their very eyes. Yet what Daniel played was no mere imitation, it was something entirely his own, raw and pure, shaped by a lifetime of pain and resilience. The music painted pictures more vivid than words. It spoke of lonely nights when he mopped empty corridors, imagining a stage that would never be his. It told of years of invisibility, of being overlooked and dismissed. It cried of heartbreak, of struggle, of endless sacrifices. But it also sang of hope, of unbroken spirit, of the fire within that refused to die. Each crescendo was lightning striking the soul, each gentle passage a caress to the heart. Guests who thought themselves hardened found their eyes wet with tears. Even the most arrogant felt something stir within them, something they couldn't name. And as Daniel's hands moved faster, dancing across the keys with impossible precision, the music reached a climax so powerful that people gasped, clutching their chests as though their own hearts had been seized. Then came the final note. It rang out like a bell, soaring through the air before fading into silence. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then the ballroom erupted. Applause thundered against the walls, shaking the very foundation of the hall. Guests rose to their feet, clapping, whistling, shouting his name though they had never cared to know it before. The janitor they mocked now stood taller than kings in their eyes. The air vibrated with the force of their admiration. For the first time in her life, Claire Harrison was speechless, her pale face betrayed her shock, her lips trembling as though searching for words that wouldn't come. She looked at Daniel with wide eyes, stripped of her arrogance, stripped of her power. How do you know how to play like that?" she finally stammered, her voice trembling. Her question carried not only disbelief but shame, the realization that she had tried to ridicule a man whose soul was greater than all her wealth. Daniel rose from the bench slowly, his calm gaze sweeping the room before landing on her. His voice was low, steady, yet filled with weight. "You see me as a janitor," he said softly, every word piercing the silence, "but once, music was my entire life." The crowd hushed, leaning forward, captivated. They had laughed at him, but now they were desperate to know more. Daniel's voice, quiet but unyielding, began to reveal his truth. He told them of his childhood, born in a poor neighborhood where music was his only escape. How he had discovered an old piano in a church basement, broken and out of tune, and taught himself to play in secret. He spoke of sneaking into churches late at night, pressing his fingers to the keys until dawn, while his friends outside wasted their lives. By 14, he was winning competitions, his name whispered with awe. By 20, invitations poured in from around the world. But then, his mother, the only person who believed in him, the only light in his dark world, fell gravely ill. Her hospital bills were insurmountable. And so, he abandoned his dream, selling his piano, giving up his rising career, and taking whatever job he could find. One night on stage turned into a lifetime with a broom in his hands, the audience shifted uncomfortably, their jewelry and wealth suddenly feeling heavy against their skin. Every cruel laugh they had thrown at him minutes earlier now echoed back at them as guilt. Claire lowered her head, her arrogance crumbling, her smirk long gone. She understood now, her mockery hadn't been aimed at a janitor, it had been aimed at an artist, a warrior, a soul greater than she had ever known. And she felt the weight of that shame pressing down on her chest. Then, from the back of the room, an elderly man pushed his way forward. His hands shook, his face lined with years of passion and regret. He was a retired conductor, a man who had once directed some of the greatest orchestras in Europe. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he pointed at Daniel. "Young man," he declared, his voice breaking, "you are a genius. A true